Good evening, I'm Ian, this is Jason. We're here doing the Aesthetica Short Film Festival here in York. Channel's all about music and art, and we are on day 3, and this is part 2. So part 1 and all the previous days are linked down below. Each of the videos is round about 25 minutes to half an hour, and this will be probably about the same, I think. So I had to hot foot it from the masterclass, which actually finished slightly late. It was I didn't really. I knew I couldn't really leave. I didn't want to leave it early because it was a good. And that's linked down below. What I said about that. But I was going to animation 2 at the city screen, so I went from York EXPO, which is library. It's only a 2-minute walk normally, but actually I had to dash to try and get to animation 2, which was in the big cinema at City Screen, which is certainly is a hub for the festival. And I was hoping it wasn't sold out, but it pretty much was. There was no chair, there was no spare seats. So I arrived literally 3 or 4 minutes late. First film was started, and I sat on the stairs for most of it. The first film was called Tennis, Oranges, and it was so. This is all animation, all 6 films. So, and it's a robotic vacuum cleaner suffering from burnout, quits its job at a hospital and sets out to find community and greater purpose in a quiet street. And although I missed the first, and it wasn't very long, the total was 10 minutes, and I probably missed half of it.
Okay.
But I have to say that second half, the little robot was with 2 rabbits, right? And I was engaged. I got it, and I thought it was really poignant, and it was really well animated, and the story was great. There's no dialogue. It was bits of bleeping from the robot and bits of Foley sound, but it was really, really entertaining. It was brilliant. And I wish I'd seen all of it, but that was just the way it worked out, really. So definitely worth seeing. The whole thing is called, it's animation 2, it's Escape Plan, and you can see it again. It will be on, annoyingly, it'll be on tomorrow. So by the time you see this, this will be up tomorrow morning, 3:30 Saturday afternoon at York St John University.
It's the first animation we've done, actually. There's 6 different ones.
Yeah,
to try and get some more.
And it wasn't. I mean, certainly some of this, some of this was not. It's not aimed at kids, because certainly one of them had to deal with sexual assault. So these animations, most of them, to be fair, kids would have got something out of it, but they clearly this group were not aimed at children. Second one was Think Something Nice, and obviously the thing is the first one was. Like the Nick Parks thing, so it was sort of, and actually that was just going back to it. What was really interesting, right at the end, they had a speeded up version of them actually making it with the plasticine models, which was, although you were seeing it, while they had the titles ready, that was just really quite something to actually see them doing it in just high speed. Was really fascinating, actually. The next one, completely different form of animation, which was fine, and it's good. What I noticed about all of them, and I hadn't noticed this about the films, but none of the films I think we've seen, and I haven't really picked up on this until I was watching animation, everything seems to be in stereo. None of it seems to be in surround sound. I don't know whether you've noticed that.
I haven't been looking out for it, but
no, I haven't.
Now you mention it.
But certainly in the bigger screens, like City Screen, you wouldn't get that in some of the other smaller venues, but City Screen's got a surround sound system, and it's the first time I'd really noticed that everything was up front. The sound was good on all of the films in this block,
you weren't getting
but I wasn't getting nothing at the sides, nothing at the back, which is, and like I said, I hadn't noticed that today. So number 2, Think Something Nice. Our protagonist is at the mercy of the dentist's chair, and I have to say it did sound, I don't want to give too much away because there's a story going on through that, but all of the sound was that sound that you hear of the dentist, So sitting in the chair, and I tend to go to the dentist and close my eyes because I don't want to see what's happening. And my mouth's open, and I've got all this stuff going on. But all of that sound. So it was, and I did go and have some work done recently at a dentist. So I was back in a dentist chair, sadly. Which, if you've got a fear of the dentist, you might not want to watch this.
It's worse than white noise.
Yeah. And it was, and they even had the things like, where they ask you questions in the dentist chair, and our protagonist went blah 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 because you can't, there was all of that going on, But it's more than that. It's to do with sea and boats and all sorts of things that was going on. I don't want to say too much because there's a story there. It was really good, but if you have a fear of the dentist, maybe look out for that one. It was because it did sound realistic for me. Third one was. The Nectar Insect, really short little film. It was only 4 minutes. It was really funny, and it was these flies that was stuck to a strip, and they could talk, And this little fly said, "I haven't lived yet. I should have stayed with the nectar." And then something happened. It was just hilarious. It was, and the other flies were, trying to. Anyway, I won't give too much because I don't want to give it away. But definitely worth a laugh. It was funny, really.
To American, that one.
Yeah. So the nectar insert. So a young fly gets stuck to a trap in a stop motion studio. It says, but yeah, no, definitely worth it. So, do you want to tell me about your your anime? You took a brave move by going to see. Advertising, which...
Yeah, so I went over to the National Centre for Early Music.
Yeah.
So it's good to see that part of the town. It's the first time I was that end of the town. I'm certainly getting to know my way around the city.
Yeah.
Advertising. There wasn't too many in there, I'd have to say.
Actually, when I went...
It's a big venue.
It is a big venue.
It's quite a big venue with 100 plus.
Yeah, there was probably only... When I went to see Experimental, whichever one it was on the first day, there was probably only about 7 or 8 of us, which is quite sad.
Wow, okay. There was 25 today, I'd say 25, 30. So, I mean, it wasn't too bad. I think it's a little bit off the beaten track, isn't it?
It's towards the warm gate, so it's a 10 minute. I mean, if you're going over from, say, the Yorkshire Museum to there, it's a good 15-minute walk.
You're not going to stumble
across
it.
Yeah.
You've got to
you're
going there. They're not going to pick up any footfall, right?
Yeah, no, they're not.
So advertising in there. So it was 16 different movies. 18. I'm sorry. All of different lengths. So the longest one was 18 minutes. Some of them were, true advert. Length, 1 minute. 18. I'll just go through each one. No, I won't. I'll give you 2 minutes.
Just give me
part 3 and part 4.
Tell me. I think the best thing. Tell me which one you thought was the best one, and then tell me which one you thought was the worst one.
Yeah, I mean it's tough with adverts, right? Because it is about what do we like, what don't we like. It is people selling you things, but it was a mixture. It was people selling you things, and there was some high brand stuff. There was Calvin Klein, Oda. There was household names, but there were other ones that weren't just selling you things, they were raising awareness. So it was really promoting that, you're not advertising just to sell things, right? Charities advertise, and raising awareness of people with disabilities, as a couple of them were. So I mean, it was good. I mean, they were all very different. It was all what you'd expect from adverts. It was kind of landscapes, helicopters, dramatic music. Everything's perfect. A lot of it is selling dreams, and it's all of that things. It's all of the things you want. So it's everything you want. Love, emotion, laughter, all of that sort of stuff. The laughter one of the ones that stood out it was called "Sorry I Didn't Catch That." 3.5 minutes. And it was supporting international stammer awareness.
Oh right, okay, yeah.
I had to say that very carefully.
Yeah.
Didn't want to trip over myself. But so there was an interesting 3.5 minute comedy about a lady with a stammer trying to kind of get through today's customer service systems. So automated. You've got to say 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 for whichever service. Finally, she got through to a completely uninterested customer service assistant, and it was so nice, little, funny, interesting one. A really captivating film, but actually about quite a serious topic. So that was pretty good. There was the long one, How to Draw a Mountain. It was 18 minutes. It was set up in the Alps. It said at the end, I captured it was in Zermatt in Switzerland. I don't know where that was going really. It was some skiers, some snowboarders for 18 minutes. Like lots of great shots. You know,
but they never sold the product.
I don't know what it is that they were doing. How to Draw a Mountain explores the strong spirit of athletes who are at the apex. It's about the ideas of nature and adventure and how tough challenges are a conduit for self-discovery and change. It was quite long, amazingly shot, as you can imagine. People sweeping down the mountains on snowboards, doing things I could only dream of. So that was the longest one in there. There was film for Adidas that was very kind of. It felt like it was like the original Dune, Mad Max. That kind of scenery that was pretty interesting.
It's a very big budget.
Calvin Klein. There was a Diamonds advert. There was an advert for Beavertown Brewery, which was an animation in itself, that was quite good. 1 minute long, called A Good Night Out. A couple more informative ones. There was one called Dear Pancreas, which kind of followed a girl from childhood up to adulthood and dealing with the effects of type 1 diabetes and how the technology has changed and made her life more inclusive, whereas she felt excluded. It's something I'm kind of familiar with. So that was very informative. And then one of the final ones, it may have been the final one, it was the last one, called A Healing Heart. So the last one was about an Amazonian tribe, indigenous people that are, they're shut away from the media and everything that kind of we take for granted, but they recognise that the world is being devastated. And they recognise that they saw that devastation firsthand. They're in the Amazonian forests, and they created a seed bank. So some of the specific trees, a guy would go out into the forest and he'd be looking for clippings of very specific trees that were becoming extinct. And he created a seed factory because he said, this particular plant, it used to shed its seeds every year. Now with what's going on in the world, it's only every 4 or 5 years, and I've got to capture the seeds to make sure. So it was on his own personal mission to make sure all these different species of trees weren't becoming extinct. So that was very informative and quite powerful. That was the one to end it with. But sitting in a room watching 18 adverts, as you can imagine, was pretty tough.
I mean, my last 3 from Animation 2, 2 of these were the weakest, certainly. The fourth one, which was Goodbye Forever Maybe, it's a stranded astronaut attempts to write his own eulogy, and it was really miserable. It was really quite. I mean, I didn't feel any empathy with him as a character. The voice sounded. Whoever the voice actor was great. Really, had a really nice voice, but it was really. I just thought, I want this to end. Actually, it wasn't terrible, but it didn't say anything to me really.
You think that's what they intended to do?
I don't know. Really.
Was that the intention?
Yeah, it was.
Probably it was, right?
It was 13 and a half minutes, and it felt like it. If I'm honest, I just thought, I'm not really sure where this is going. There is a twist at the end, but I really wasn't engaged. Apart from liking the nice voice of the actor who was saying the script, and the animation. To be fair, the animation looked fine, but I think the story.
It lost you by the sound of it.
It did lose me, really. Right. Yeah. The next one was certainly one of the. It was beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
The picture doesn't even look like animation, right?
No, it doesn't, and it didn't. And I did wonder if it was motion capture when I first saw it, but I think it was actually just animation. I mean, the animation itself, before we got to the story, was absolutely beautiful. Right. It was a lovely story about a mum and a son. Again, don't want to say too much because I want you to see it at some point. It's called A Wind and the Shadow by somebody called Chris Kelly. It's Irish, and they had the Irish lilt in their voices, the actors who were, and it's this mum and this son, and they're at the seaside, and they're swimming to start with. But the animation was, out of all the 6, that animation was just the best, and it was only 8 minutes 51 seconds, and it was just brilliant. So
picked you back up from the prior one, then, by the
absolutely,
back in the room?
Absolutely, yeah. No, I was on the beach with them.
Right.
You know, it was really, really good.
Very good.
And it just shows you the difference, really. I've got one piece, and these are just personal opinions, aren't they? Really, I've got one piece that doesn't engage with me at all, and the next film, which is only 8 minutes long, 8.5 minutes long, and I'm completely with them, and I want to know what happens to them, and you know, I don't want to give anything away because I want people to see it, because it's just fantastic, and it may end up on the online. Hopefully, it'll end up on the online part of Aesthetica, which you can see. It says that we've said it in a previous video, but we'll say it again. The online part of Aesthetica Film Festival will be on until the end of November, and you can pay separately, just so you don't have to come to York to see that. So we'll find out after all the stuff we're doing here. We're going to spend a couple of days looking at some films online, hopefully, so we'll be able to say a bit more about that in a future video. But that was brilliant.
Yeah, and fill in some of the blanks, right? It's impossible to see everything.
It is impossible.
We're touching the surface.
Yeah, we are, just literally.
And we've been doing some miles, right?
We have, yeah. And the last one, by this time I decided to stand up because I've been sat on the step for an hour, best part of an hour. So I stood up and stood down the side, and I can only describe this. But again, I wasn't engaged with this one, but it's a really serious subject. It's called The Garden, and in the aftermath of a sexual assault, you don't actually see the sexual assault, but you know it's happened. A woman retreats into the garden of her mind, but it was very trippy, and it reminded me of the Yellow Submarine movie, and the animation looked like that, but actually also it was really abstract in the way that the Beatles' Yellow Submarine, and I wasn't engaged with it at all, although it was clearly an important subject. I just don't think it was done well enough from the story point of view. I didn't really get why we started with her in the garden, and then she's in a bar and has the sexual assault, and then we go back to the garden, and things have changed, and it just didn't do it for me at all. I did actually leave before the end. I got enough of it to know that I didn't want to stay, although I stood, out of the way. So I left literally there was only probably 2 or 3 minutes left to go, but I didn't know that at that point, but I wasn't engaged. So again, bit of a mixed bag, but certainly seeing the nectar, the one about the flies was so funny, and the wind and the shadow is definitely the second best thing that I've seen at the whole festival for me. So when we get to do a top 5, I've got 2 of them already.
Very good. Or so you think?
Oh, so I think we've got more stuff to do. We got 2 more days. So yeah, and then we met up, didn't we? We had a coffee and we went to see another masterclass
at the museum, Future of Entertainment, the Anatomy of a Podcast.
So I sat at the front row, you sat at the back, which is how we like to split up. We split up, and it was about narrative driven podcasts, and I thought it was really good. It was an all-female panel, wasn't it? And I really liked it. I got quite a lot out of it, actually. And they went into quite a lot of detail about how, for the first time actually, the budget of a podcast, a narrative-based podcast. And I've watched. I've certainly seen. They were talked about Serial, and I remember Serial. The podcast came out through pandemic, just before the pandemic, and I remember listening to that every week as it came out. I also listened to. So
I'm a podcast virgin.
Yeah.
I've never listened to a podcast at all, so it was informative for me. So that Serial then, was that like
it's a true story.
The Breaking Bad of
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. It wasn't. I can't remember that much. I know it was a true story.
Right.
I also can't remember that much about it because it was obviously at least 2 or 3 years ago.
But that seems to be the standard bearer, the way they was talking about.
They were, but actually I slightly disagreed with them about standard bearer because the one that I really liked, which I do remember, was The Dropout, which was about the Theranos company, which was a healthcare company, and that started as a podcast and then became, I think it was a Netflix documentary They might have called it something else. And that podcast, obviously, and they interviewed the real people, as they did with their own podcast that our panel were talking about. And the benefit I got from that was that I was able to actually, when I saw the documentary, I was able to put a face to the voices that I'd heard in the podcast, which was actually quite a nice thing to do. I wouldn't necessarily always want to do that. And they've made, I think they're making it into a movie, or they've made it into a movie.
They did talk about that podcasts are a natural pathway to television and film.
Very much so, yeah. And I made some notes, and I'm sure you did as well, actually. So the notes that I made, I was very interested in the budget, because they did a breakdown of the budget.
They did a pie chart, effectively.
And I did say I asked a question, but I also said that I was quite disappointed to see that the script and the music will be sound effects as well, or audio effects, each of them was only 8% of a budget, and it could be between, if it was a £1,200 podcast, then you're only looking at £100 for music, which isn't a lot. It could be up to 30 grand, but that, when you've got all this other stuff going on,
it was per episode, I think.
Oh, was it per episode?
It was per episode.
Right. I didn't pick up. Oh, good point.
Yeah,
I didn't pick up on that.
Per episode.
Right. Sorry, I missed that.
But either way, it was a small cut, but it was a very important part. But it's a little bit of that music is at the bottom of the food chain, right? It's there to complement everything else.
And the podcast that the two girls had worked on was the Madman's Hotel podcast, which is actually on Audible. And I did ask the question, what is the difference between an audiobook? Because Audible are selling it as an audiobook and a podcast. So, and they reckon that
recognise the lines.
They recognise the lines were blurring, certainly.
But they said it does go. It becomes very different when it becomes an audiobook. You have to take out all the imperfections. It has to be clear. Whereas when it's a podcast, people want the imperfections. They want the grittiness and the reality of it. I think was what they were trying.
But I thought the whole session was really good. It was really interesting. It was engaging. I learnt stuff, which is, I think I can say that for all of the actual masterclasses we've seen.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. No, I certainly, considering I've got zero knowledge of podcasts, I took a lot away from it for a 1 hour session. Yeah. And they were both, it's an emerging industry, but it's still it hasn't figured itself out. It's a growth industry for sure. It must be growing faster than animation or anything else. I think it is. I think maybe games would be probably the only thing that's.
I think it's in danger of oversaturation, because there are so many podcasts. Everybody and his dog I've got a podcast, mine's about music, but it's not a spoken podcast, it's playing bits of music. So, but everybody's doing podcasts to some extent, and obviously, some of them are quite celebrity based sort of things. I don't listen to celebrity based podcasts. I do listen to a couple of podcasts, but I won't say I regularly listen. I only regularly listen to one, and that's about film.
It'd be interesting to see where it goes. We're talking about a lot of it was becoming firewalled subscription model. Yeah. So you could.
Which I have to say, I hate that. I do hate the subscription model for anything. I know that we've got Netflix.
The impression I got was it was kind of part good, part bad, because if you chose to subscribe, you would be fed the stuff. You know what you're getting. Yeah. It's content you like, and you can tailor it. You get more advertising, you get more revenue, you get a bigger budget. They talked a lot about the UK is, the US are leading podcasts. Yeah. And Serial
is an American podcast. Right.
So all the UK houses are trying to do it, but they're on a much budget of the US ones, and that was a little bit of a struggle. Yeah. They talked about podcast started out as a celebrity thing. Yes. They called it two blokes having a chat. Yeah. Started out as celebrity.
And there is an awful lot of that.
Then it's switched to journalism, and then it's kind of gone back to celebrity again, because it creates the pulling power. So it's very positive. They were
positive, and they were great.
You can tell they go places. You can tell they kind of go places.
Yeah. Their companies want to watch, I think. Yeah. They did mention the name of the company, but I didn't write it. I didn't make a note of it actually.
Look up the Madman's Hotel, and you'll find it.
Yeah, exactly, you will. and I'll put a clip in. So and that ends our day. We did go to the Aesthetica
Friday night
party, and we were an hour early, weren't we?
We're fashionably
early. But actually, we decided that we were, well, at least one of us is too old.
both too old.
But, yeah, we didn't stay that long, actually.
And we don't like cocktails.
And we don't, yeah, and actually, we were lucky we were able to get to the bar before it started. Literally 5 minutes after it started at 8 o'clock. It was like 6 deep at the bar, and you were going to be there for hours if you wanted to try and get a drink. It wasn't a particularly big venue, although I believe it was upstairs. You said it was upstairs.
But on a positive, there is lots of networking activities, right? They're playing around. It does look like the lanyard tends to be people are gravitating towards each other that are wearing the.
Again, I mean,
don't break mine.
No, Aesthetica.
Mine's like cheese.
The Aesthetica girls this morning gave me another brand new lanyard. They swapped it out for me, and guess what? I've broken it again. It's actually in my wallet.
It's quite good because people are walking around.
Yeah, you know who's here for the festival.
Everyone's in. If everyone's in the bar, it will generate people.
And actually, there is on Sunday lunchtime there is another networking session, which I don't think it's about networking. So we may if we get a chance to go to that.
See if we're miserable old gits or not.
Yeah, exactly. So, anything else from you?
No, it was a Friday well spent. Looking forward to seeing how it shapes at the weekend. I guess we'll probably get more traffic, probably the attendance. I mean, everywhere's
be different.
Really full.
But
it'd be interesting to see what it's like.
Well, it's like tomorrow and Sunday. We've got a film premiere tomorrow night.
It's packed schedules. I mean, Saturdays is absolutely packed.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to choosing what we do.
Yeah, I'm seeing less stuff tomorrow because I've got a podcast to do tomorrow afternoon. So I'm doing that instead of actually going to see stuff. But we are going to go to the film premiere tomorrow evening. You're going to go see some stuff which we will talk about. You can talk about tomorrow. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow for more stuff. Yeah. Oh, by the way, check us out on TikTok and Instagram because we are posting stuff to there. I'm doing a daily TikTok. With just today I did the city screen and the poster exhibition, so you can have a look at TikTok. Ian J. Cole. What's your Instagram?
It's rubbish. Don't go there yet. I need to figure out how to use it more interesting.
So do I.
It's done.
Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you again tomorrow. Cheers now. Bye bye.